Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back. It's a new week, it's a new episode of The Breakdown. With your hosts, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how was your weekend? How are you?
I don't think you're the guy to be asking me that question, my friend, because
I
some
know.
of our viewers, they know that you and I have a slight different of football team, and you know what happened this weekend. So I am
Yeah,
very
you had
happy.
a smash and grab at the end of the game. It's fine. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm sure it
I
was
had a
great.
great weekend. Thank you very much. How
It's
are
all
you,
good. I made
bro?
I made some money, so I'm alright. You know what I mean? I
That's
don't
good.
that never bothers me as long as I make money.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Good stuff. Right. So I want to try and be in and out of it as quickly as possible because finally my PS5 is actually downloading things quickly. So I've got some games to be playing tonight as well as going to the gym as I've been out all day doing a bunch of different things. So I will greet the great defeaters in the chat and then we will get started on the show and the first one's up. So first up, first person in, big up Philip Answer. I think this is the first time you've been first on a Tuesday, so big ups to you. Declan as well, bless up. Skyliner the editor, North Bank Bren, shout out to you. Dan the man, hardest working guy on X, we appreciate it. Mulla, big ups to you and Fight Fan TV. Was both at the Crystal Palace game. Nice little victory for you lot on the weekend. You man are done for. Big ups to you. Big ups to G Chain in the building. J Lanks as well. Untraceable. Um, I think that's it for the moment. So thanks for everyone who's made the chat thus far, and to everyone that will be popping in and out of the show. We give thanks. Right. Right. So what is our technical first big fight? Are we going Arthur Suarez or are we going Antwi Cartwright?
Ooh, wow. That is a very
I
good
mean, that's what
question.
I'm here for. I'm here to challenge. Like,
Yeah, well, the headliner for the show was Suarez against Arthur, so I think we should start there.
well, no, the headline was Antwi Cartwright. That fight came on
Well, let's
after
put it a world title always trumps a British title, bro. Come on,
a
let's not
world
get that
title.
mixed up.
A world title. Are we doing that? Is that what
Okay,
we're doing?
listen, my
It's up
man
to
is
you.
now
I'm just
my
here to
guy
pose the
is
questions that the
officially
people want
the
to know.
IBO light heavyweight champion of the world. So let's
Okay.
give him his crew. Let's give him his flowers. Let's get into him because that for me, you
All
know,
right. Cool.
we
Start
got
it
we got
off.
to give it for its true for what it is. Look, there's
I mean,
lots of
no,
other
it
great
was a great.
champions
I'm
out
just
there
asked because you said
who
a
have
world
been
title, but
called.
do we acknowledge the IBO
We
now? That's
have
all I'm
to.
asking.
We have to
Okay,
because
okay.
it might be the most minor of all the world titles, but it is still a world title. And you know what? There's a couple of other guys in the light heavyweight division who currently don't have a world title.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's start it
Yeah,
off. This is
the
your bag.
IBO. Look, I've got a picture with an IBO belt, right? But listen,
It's a nice looking title. I'm just
great
asking.
champions, new and old, have held that belt. So let's get into it.
Go for it.
Um, so unfortunately, no video this weekend, as literally there was nothing available. So Lyndon Arthur in Bolton fighting against Suarez. I mean, wow, what a fight. It wasn't the greatest entertainment, but it was busy. Lyndon Arthur used what he has to his credit is a very good jab. He constantly kept peppering. What's the guy's first name? Sorry. I forget the guy's first name, but he kept peppering him with the jab, and you know it was a very good jab. However, I knew it was really funny because as I watched the opening credits for the fight, and obviously, you know, seeing the preamble before, I thought to myself what I always think about Argentinian fighters. As far back as I can ever remember, Argentinian fighters fight one way. They will come in, they will roll the dice, and they will throw hands. And they will take one to give you three. And that was how this fight ended up being. Because essentially, Lyndon Arthur was trying to pot shot, whereas my guy was saying, listen, I'll take your pot shot. I haven't got a problem eating your jab, but you're going to receive 3 of my blows to every one of yours. And my guy came in with hooks and uppercuts. He was mixing it up, body and head. And essentially, for the majority of the fight, Lyndon Arthur was just being outworked. I gave him a couple of early rounds, but literally, the minute Arthur got dropped, Suarez really knew what he was about, and he set 2 on Lyndon Arthur with a punishing set of attacks. Now, I would say his engine kind of caught up with him probably around round 8, at which point I considered him to be less influential in terms of forcing Lyndon Arthur back. And it was at that point that Lyndon realized that, you know what, I now need to step on the gas and try to do something about this fight. And into round 9, he started to get combinations together and really put the pressure back onto Suarez, whereby, you know, this was the first time for me that he had reestablished any kind of momentum in the fight. Not to say he won the round, but he kind of got a semblance of momentum back in the fight. And then, was it round 10 that he stopped him? Yeah. The combination to the body, I can't say it looked that hard. But I happen to know that, you know, look, in annals of histories, we've seen a lot of fighters go down from body shots where it doesn't look great or it doesn't look hard. So no one can actually vouch for and say he didn't receive a hard blow to the stomach and that winded him sufficiently for him to get counted out. But it just didn't look great. It didn't look hard, but it did the business. And basically, Lyndon grabbed a win, which didn't look anywhere possible at the time of the stoppage. You know, I really don't see where Lyndon goes from here. I mean, obviously, as I said, he is now a world champion. As I said, a title that many people haven't got. Look, who will he fight next? There's some great fights out there for him now that he holds that title, but it's not looking great, bruv. It's not looking great. What was your take?
All right, so just to answer this from Philip Answer, yes, AJ did hold the IBO on both of his championship reigns. It's not necessarily a belt that was won, you know, like in the unification. It was kind of just added to his Klitschko fight that he had when they had the WBA on track for there. Untraceable says IBO is less than the WBA Reggie belt. So you got North Brenko into the IBS belt. So look, right, the fight itself. Let's get into the fight. So Lyndon started slow, as he kind of does. Normally he's able to sort of start slow, but keep everything just behind the jab and sort of work into fights from there and frustrate his opponents and get them to open up so that he ends up taking them out late. On this particular occasion, he started slow, and to me, Suarez actually won the first round through not just activity, but hard punching, backing Lyndon up onto the ropes, making him have to sort of reset. And it was just like a yeah, it was just a very uh uneventful round for Lyndon. Now the second and the third rounds is where Lyndon started really getting the jab going, started actually throwing the backhand behind that jab as well, and was starting to time Suarez when he was making mistakes. And so those two rounds there is when he was really starting to get into his groove. However, from the third round, even though he was getting into his stride and really sort of working behind the jab and trying to control the pace, he was occasionally collapsing the pocket a bit too much and putting himself into Suarez's range and being susceptible to being caught with that overhand right. And he was also getting backed up a little bit rather than holding center ring and dictating the pace. And you could kind of see what Suarez was looking to do, but um, Linden's punches weren't necessarily looking like they was having a huge effect. Then comes the fourth round, whereby Linden is working behind the jab. He's starting to get into a bit more of a groove, but now he's basically just being Suarez is just looking for the overhand. He's just looking to sort of barrel in, and Linden is still on the inside, just like almost holding, like he's trying to get breathers. And I think this gate is what gave Suarez the necessary the impetus to kick on. And literally him and obviously Linden were exchanging, and he caught Linden with a counter right hook, which dropped Linden to a knee. And Suarez is lucky because I think he did connect with Linden again just before, as his knee was off the ground, so he didn't get counted. I mean, he didn't get disqualified, but Linden ended up getting counted off of that. I don't think it was a hard shot. So he was yeah, so he was lucky in that regard. However, from that moment up until the time of the stoppage, Suarez won every single round off of not just activity, but the fifth round he really hurt. He hurt Linden, gave it a big salvo off the ropes where Linden was sort of tucking up, just trying to ride and hold the storm. You thought he might end up taking the knee again to just stop the momentum, but he stayed on his feet, gritted it out. But every round was just more of the same. He just couldn't get his work off. He couldn't be consistent. He was just getting outworked, out hustled, and the shots was just coming thick and fast. But from about round 7 onwards, Suarez's gas tank started looking like it was emptying. And even though he was still managing and winning the rounds, the punches didn't have the same amount of sting on them. And that's where I feel that Linden was starting to feel like, okay, I can take these. I'm still not winning the rounds, but I'm not in trouble like how I was a few rounds earlier. So he starts trying to counter punch off the ropes at times between 7 and 8. And in round 9, again, he's still being out hustled and outworked, but he's not being put on the ropes as badly as he was previously. Then we get to round 10, where the two of them essentially in the middle of the ring trading up. Linden's blocking. He's sort of trying to also throw shots at the same time. Suarez is blocking, throwing shots. So they're in a bit of an exchange. And then Linden tries to shoot one to the head, which Suarez blocks. And then he just does a quick 1-2 salvo to the body. Again, both punches didn't look like anything at all. But then as Suarez extended out and tried to counter punch Linden stepped back. Suarez missed that shot. And then literally a second later, he was just grimacing in pain, goes down, and just crawling on the floor. He's trying to get up, can't get up past the 10 count. So yeah, do you see when the shot goes in? It was like a liver shot. It wasn't very hard. It didn't look very hard, I should say, but it was enough to to sort of just fold Suarez, and he basically was just unable to sort of get back up. And Lyndon Arthur pulled victory from the jaws of defeat, because he was well on his way to losing on points or potentially even getting stopped if something else connected. But it was a great performance of attrition more than anything else, showing that he could sort of gut it out and come through a crisis and be good in a crisis. However, the problem is that was against someone who I guess no one particularly was expecting you to do anything against, and you had to come through crisis with that. So then what happens when you even now have to fight either the rest of your domestic rivals or someone who is of a level above Brian Suarez, like an actual top 10 rated opponent, or a, maybe even a top 15. Are those lapses of comfort, those lapses of concentration, or that languid, that relaxed style that you're opposing, is that all, is that gonna be an issue moving forward? um so it'll be interesting. We'll have to find out. And I do just want to say, for everyone that is now sort of on the whole, you know Lyndon Arthur Craig Richards fight next, I was the one that started that. There's evidence on Beats' channel. I think I don't think I put it in the weekend wrap, but yeah, I was very much the person saying that, yeah, Craig. Like, if I was Craig, I'd want that work. And all of a sudden, I see it on Boxing News. I see it on a couple of American channels. I just saw, obviously, I see Danny put it in the chat, and I know him and Craig have probably spoken about that fight in the past. Obviously, everyone wanted Lyndon. Dan Aziz wanted him to win the British outright. It'd be a good fight back for Craig, but I know I was the one who put that out there. I even messaged Craig the other day. I was, yo, would you take Lyndon in your next fight? And he's like, yeah, 100%. I was, all right, cool. But look, I'll put it out there. It looks like it might be getting some traction. So let's see if it happens. He goes, yeah, cool. And I just said to him, like, just remember who it was who put that out there, when you're snatching the IBO title. And he started laughing. So yeah, just little bits of banter between them and them. But there'd be a great fight for him to come back to. There's no, I mean, yeah, you might want, people might say like tune ups or whatever, but I don't think, I only think you necessarily need a tune-up fight coming back if your next fight is like the elite guys. That, when I say the elites, I'm talking the better BFs, the Bivels, maybe even someone like the maybe not elite, but like Joe Smith Juniors and those type of guys. You know, Outside of that, I feel like you should be of a good enough standard, and you should believe in yourself enough that you can step back in the ring with like a Lyndon Arthur, or a Blender De Santos, or someone like that. So we'll see, because I know Blender's got he's got the European title at the moment, so that would obviously be a good way to have to go with as well. But yeah, overall, it was a very entertaining fight to watch, and again, it was a good performance of attrition and willpower more than anything else. But if Lyndon wants to, like, basically keep his name in bright lights, then he's gonna have to switch on more moving forward, because he can't keep coming out after every fight. Yeah, it wasn't really a great performance. I just couldn't really get going. Like, we can't really have that. You have to have a great performance now. Yeah, you've had enough. You've had enough of the subpar ones. I wasn't feeling myself. Blah blah blah. Now, like, there's only so many of those you're gonna get. But yeah, big ups to him. New IBO world title, and obviously Sonny Edwards is doing his duties as best man on this timeline. By we're in the 5 belt era now, even though 2 years ago that's not what he was saying about the IBO title. But hey, everyone's allowed to change, I suppose. I just noticed, as for someone who's constantly on Twitter, he specifically avoided when I asked him the question about that. But that's cool. Right, I'll check.
Could you not raising any smoke with my boy Sonny, please? Because
I don't raise smoke with Sonny.
All right, just warning you.
Me and Sonny are cool, but at the end of the day, like, I'll still ask the questions that need to be asked, and he didn't answer it.
All right.
It is what it is.
Make sure you keep that energy for other fighters, yeah.
Like who? What energy do I not keep? Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
I guess we might as well go straight into Antoine Cartwright.
Yeah, potential knockout of the year. I'll let you talk about this one.
Well, to be totally honest, right, so I was watching this fight, and when I was actually watching the fight, I fell asleep before the end of it. So I missed it in real time. And I was actually only able to see it earlier on today, because you couldn't go back on the stream on My5 and watch it back. So I had to wait for them to upload it actually onto the app to be able to see the fight. So yeah, I saw the last couple of rounds. ultimately it was a very nip and tuck fight from start to finish. So it was a good, fun, entertaining fight for the British title. Sammy Antwi, I felt, had the better of the exchanges, but Mason Cartwright was, I feel like he was getting the better. Um, he was getting the better work off overall when it was just about sort of, hit and not get hit to a degree. He was getting caught with big shots, but I felt like he was hustling and being able to harry Antwi about more than he wanted to, and I feel like he was outworking him at various moments in the fight. But yeah, ultimately 12th round. I mean, I feel like a lot of people feel like the 12th round KO, especially when you have like a barnstorm of a fight, is the best way to go. When the fight's, it's nip and tuck forward, and then all of a sudden someone just takes it out of the judge's hands conclusively in the last round, and ultimately that's what happened. Sweet right hand, which basically just slept, it slept Cartwright on his feet, very similar to Terry Harper. And then the ref was behind Cartwright, so didn't actually see that his guard had laxed and that his head basically just stopped still. Then all of a sudden, that big left hook came in, and as the refs obviously seen the left hook, he's starting to run in the notice now, but he wasn't able to get there in time to stop the big right, the right uppercut hook coming in to finish things off. But I feel like he made it in there enough that Cartwright didn't take a full-blooded shot, the third shot, because I feel like the ref was able to sort of get his body in the way just enough so he didn't take the full brunt of it. But yes, brutal knockout. I think it would definitely be one of the top three, or well, it's definitely be in the top 10 of the year when we get to December. But it was the way that you end the show, and it was another very good fight card on Channel 5. Like, say what you want to say about Channel 5 boxing, but they do seem to deliver very good fights. I haven't really seen many duds thus far, apart from I think the last Harlem Eubank fight. But yeah, all good.
Yeah, so I got to see the whole fight live. I wasn't at the event, but I was able to watch the whole thing on Channel 5 after watching the Eubank fight, and I was, as you said, entertained. I thought it was a very intriguing matchup, which, I had some skin in the game because Samuel Antwi is trained by a very good friend of mine, Gary Shogun Logan. So, I'm always going to favor, a guy who's trained by a good friend of mine. Of course, Samuel Antwi is from Stockwell. So he's, again, a London boy coming up against a Northerner. But yeah, this was an interesting nip and tuck fight all the way through. But in all honesty, a fight that was mainly controlled by Samuel Antwi all the way through. So in my estimation, he didn't lose many rounds, if any, up until maybe the 9th round, which was a strong round for Cartwright. But up until then, it looked like Antwi just had enough control of the pace of the fight, of the time in terms of when action would take place. Cartwright didn't really force any actions prior to that, and even if he tried to, and we always seemed to be able to come back with something even stronger than what Cartwright was able to offer. One thing I would say is, this isn't the first time I've seen Samuel Antwi. I'm a little bit concerned about his footwork, because he is slightly plodding in what he does. But what he lacks with his footwork, he makes up for it with his upper body strength. So he's able to move people with good solid upper body strength. If he gets in a clinch, he's able to move his fighter around, but he doesn't actually have good footwork in terms of being able to move in and out of distance. So he's able to be caught quite easily if you've got good footwork yourself. Now, unfortunately for Cartwright, he didn't have great footwork himself, but he was still able to keep himself in the fight by tagging Antwi from time to time in each and every round. But yeah, this is all about that 12th and final round. And Look, we don't expect to normally see concussive KOs in the 12th round. You know, they're a bit of a seldom thing to see. But the manner in which this knockout came, the combination which Antwi used to create the space and to eventually find that left hook, which was the one that caught Cartwright flush, effectively standing him up and rendering him unconscious while on his feet, was
It was a right
amazing.
hook.
Oh, excuse me, right hook. But then, the two following punches, one that lands, one doesn't land. I mean, the one that doesn't land, I mean, I was like, whoa. When I saw that uppercut miss, I was like, thank God for that. Because I'm pretty certain had he hit him with that last punch that he threw, which he had launched all of his body into, we might have been seeing a much worse case in terms of what that damage might have caused.
I mean, it
But
connected, but it just wasn't. It didn't connect flush because the referee
yeah,
managed to get his body in there, but it did connect.
yeah. But yeah, good fight. Absolutely, as I said, very entertaining. And obviously, British title now wrapped up by Samuel Antwi. Let's see where he goes from here now.
Cool. All right. Now the other action of Thursday night, we'll keep this one brief because a lot of people probably didn't see it, but it was on the Fight Network. It was a unification bout within the bantamweight division for the women. It was Dina Thorsland versus Yulihan Luna. This took place in Denmark, which is Dina Thorsland's home nation, home country, and Yulihan Luna is Mexican. So she was basically coming over as the away fighter to do the unification bout. This was very much it's weird because actually within the actual fight itself, you had Dina Thorsland is not normally a pressure fighter. She's more sort of a more of a boxer puncher that will either set traps on the outside or she'll manage distance and sort of get into range. But in this one, whereas Yulihan was the taller fighter, Yulihan was actually more on the back foot trying to set the traps, and Dina Thorsland was actually on the front foot being a pressure fighter, actually stepping into the shots, shooting that jab, trying to duck underneath any potential counter, and then sort of trying to come over the top with the right hand. And ultimately, within the fight itself, it was a rinse and repeat. Yulihan just wasn't being active enough. She it's almost like she thought that fighting on the back foot only, a counter here or there would be enough to win the rounds. It's either that or maybe she wasn't as fit as she usually is, like when fighting in Mexico or like the Americas, because she was very economical and just sort of coasting throughout the rounds, which isn't usually like her. And as such, ultimately, it was 10 rounds of similar patterns, whereby Dina Thorsland just won the majority of the rounds. She won them quite comfortably and at a canter, to be honest. She got caught a couple of times, had to hold a couple of hard shots, but she weathered those and then just applied the pressure back the other way. And pretty much it was a shutout performance. I believe it was like 98, 92, 99, 91, and I think there might have been like 100 to 90 card as well. But either way,
No,
yeah,
97, 93 was the third one.
97, 93, 99, 91, 98, 92. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I gave Yulihan 2 rounds, so all three of those cards were there wasn't too much problems, because even the two that I gave Yulihan, there's one of them you can make an argument the other way. So yeah, and if you find the third round that's cool as well, especially being on away soil. Maybe it was a legit one, which I just didn't really pick up on. But yeah, good fight. We got one unification now. Now we're just waiting on the other one between Nina Hughes and Ebony Bridges, whenever that potentially happens, so that you can go and get an undisputed champ for that division. And my money for undisputed would be, well, if it was in the UK, I think my money would be on Nina. If it's in Denmark, then my money would be on Dina. Um, so yeah, let's have it in Monaco on neutral ground.
Wow. I mean, I didn't see the entire fight. I saw highlights of the fight. I did send you some what I saw. It didn't look the foregone conclusion that the judges had it, because I looked and saw that Luna seemed to have patches where she was able to use her length. But what I did recognize straight away from the walking was how raucous the crowd was. That Denmark crowd was raucous for Dina Thorsland, and I think there's a potential of a little bit of home cooking on that one in terms of the scores. But
Now,
as I
if
said,
you
I
watch
didn't
the
see the.
full fight, there's no home cooking. If you watch the full
Okay,
fight, yeah.
yeah, all right. But yeah, I mean, Luna looked like she could have potentially caused a whole lot more trouble for Dina Thorsland, just because she's got the longer levers. She was able to, use jab better than Thorsland. Thorsland has to come inside to get her work done. But she did it. I don't see how, from what I saw of Thorsland, she beats either Nina Hughes or Ebony Bridges, to be honest. I think they're just too polished in terms of being able to maintain a gap between them and someone like Dina Thorsland. Although you're the expert, my brother, so I'm just giving my view of what I
No, I hear
think
that. I hear that. But trust
that
me,
might look like.
Dina Forsland, she washes Ebony Bridges,
Wow.
100%.
Okay.
And I like Ebony, but she washes Ebony. She has a harder time with Nina because Nina's got a better amateur pedigree.
Mm,
So but because they're similar heights. There's no range advantage. There's no it's not going to be a jab fight. It's literally going to be who can angle off and catch the shot on the pivot quicker out of the two of them. Um,
mm,
and Dina's also probably got the most knockout power out of all four of the women. She's got the most stoppages in the fights. Obviously, yeah, and ultimately she hits hard enough to gain respect. If you watch enough of her work, you'll kind of see that she's. I'm not saying that
mm.
she's like the greatest bantamweight, like she can be beat, most definitely, but I definitely don't think Ebony does. But I would Nina Hughes, I could give a very good chance for that being 50-50.
Cool.
All right, what are we going to next?
So we move on to the Saturday night card, boxers card, headlined by Liam Smith against Chris Eubank Jr., the rematch. But we'll talk about some of the undercard action that there was on the night. We'll give a couple of honourable mentions, if I may. I'm sure you
Go
may
for it.
want to. Michaela Mayer. I like the fact that Michaela is willing to come back to these shores and fight over here. She fought Sylvia Bortot. Pretty much easy work for me. It looked like just glorified sparring for me.
Okay.
It was just so one-sided. Bortot offered nothing in terms of anything coming back towards Michaela that I considered of worth. And she, Michaela doesn't at any point in the fight just think, I'm going to up my pace. She works at such a pedestrian rate, but it's enough to beat a girl like Sylvia Bortot. So to me, well done, Michaela. Thanks for coming over. But yeah, moving on
Well,
to
you
bigger
say
things
that
for
just
her.
before obviously you run off because we wasn't even supposed to speak about that one, but just to say, like, it's not like I don't particularly think she's overly choosing to come over here. I think this is where she's being given the opportunities. I don't think Top Ranker is invested to have her back in the States headlining shows anymore now that she's not a champion. And anyone
Okay,
with a belt is on this side of the pond. So yeah, I think it's
cool.
more of a necessity than a want and desire. But hey, she does well while she's over here. She's good with the media.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants any breakdown of the Florian Marcoux fight against Dylan Moran, but 54 seconds worth of action, which was actually probably more like 10 seconds because the first 44 seconds, there was pretty much nothing going on until Marcoux decided to let his hands go. And pretty much the first long left hook that he threw wobbled Moran sufficiently, and then he was all over the place from then. And instead of, using his feet to get out of danger, he sort of shelled up and allowed Florian to unleash a barrage of attack, which the referee stepped into. Okay, that's that one. Then we'll move on to Fraser Clark versus Dave Allen. I honestly don't want to talk about that fight because it was awful. I literally don't want to talk about it. It was just awful from Fraser Clark. And in my estimation, you know, he showed me he's Southern area at best.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I don't have to mention. I already told you what the plan was. Look, with regards to that, the only thing we will address is obviously more low blow gate, which is very strange to me. The weird one about the low blows in this, and obviously he tried to say that no, there was one that was low, the others they was okay, but he was making a meal of them. But ultimately, the funny thing that I saw is last week or the week before we had the whole the trunks was too high and da da da. Well, Dave Allen literally had his trunks at his waistline, literally sitting on his waistline. You like his protector with his cup was visibly underneath his navel as well. Now, okay, if we're not classing that, whatever, but the whole point being, if you're gonna be attacking anywhere near the band of his trunks, you are clearly gonna be throwing low shots because then it's not even covering the top of his protector like it's allowed to. So yeah, crazy. Like 2 low blows in the what was it, the 4th round, and then 2 points off. Then he does it again, and the ref decides not to take a point off. But there was numerous ones beforehand. I don't know. It was a very it was like you said, it was a very horrid fight. There's no real technical analysis to go. I think Fraser's a good guy. Like I'd like to actually interview him and just speak to him on a personal level away from boxing. But yeah, I made my stance on Fraser Clark and his his ceiling like months ago, like years ago, 2 years ago. So yeah. Oh, big up to Muller. Muller's just put some news in the chat. So Joe Cusumano's returned adverse findings from his 24th of June bout with Adam Kovnatsky. Now that's interesting. We haven't got the time to talk about that one, but thank you very much for bringing that to the attention. We'll definitely have to look at that. So bless up Muller, and Philip has obviously put it in the chat as well. So that's probably just broke on X right now. Although I'm wondering why would it happen so late? The fight was in June. How was he like? We're in September now, and we're finding out. But anyway, yeah, that's enough about Fraser and David Allen. What's next?
So we'll talk about Adam Azim versus Aram Fanian.
Okay, so let me start this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this particular fight, I felt this was a good test for Adam Azim. Fanian's obviously had a pretty extensive pro career by this point. Hasn't necessarily fought any big names or any competition of note, but he does the basics very well, especially in defense. And the only time his shape was ever let down was when he was in transition from defense to attack, especially towards the sort of middle to late rounds where he started to leap in with shots. But that being said, he was compact. He basically made Adam Azim have to work for everything. Adam backed out in straight lines at times with his chin up in the air, and on a couple of occasions was nearly tagged doing so. That's something he's got to tighten up on. But his speed is clearly what he's trading off at the moment. His speed and athleticism are definitely something that will get him through this level of opponent. But the defense needs to tighten up. The arms, he's definitely got to start bringing those arms back to those heads when he's shooting, especially when he's shooting the jab 1-2. One of those hands has got to come back, because if someone does a catch and counter, he's pretty much tailor-made to get caught with that. Also notice that he's not necessarily getting the same kind of power or knockdowns as he was before, and that's because he's now fighting people who are actually within his weight class naturally. So he's not being able to almost leap into the shots. He's having to sort of extend to be able to get into range, which is taking a little bit of sting off of the offer the shots that are coming in. He's still got good power, still obviously good like good pedigree coming up, but it looks like they're probably gonna try and slow down on the push of him now, and maybe take him away from also the main events that he's recently been frequenting. His last two fights back to back now, both gone the distance. So you might just need to just take a bit more time, a bit more seasoning. But overall, like it was a nice little competitive fight. It wasn't necessarily action packed, but from a technical standpoint and from a defensive standpoint, and making someone have to basically earn their meal for the night. Yeah, Aaron Fanyan definitely did that, and I did like sort of his shape that he kept, especially even when he was under the cushion, was tired towards the back end of the fight. He was still able to sort of keep his shape and keep his composure, which I appreciated. But yeah, what did you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, this was my first opportunity to see Fanyan. I can't say I'd ever seen him before, but he looked a very strong fighter. And again, like I said about the Argentinians, this kid looked like he just, was willing to take a shot in order to give a shot. I thought he was competitive in every round without ever winning many rounds. So, a good performance by Adam, but I think Fanyan showed some potential flaws in Adam Azim. Pretty much exactly as what you said. I thought he won the fight, but for me, when I look at where his ceiling is based on that performance against that opponent, I think he's going to struggle with when he gets up into the higher levels of, maybe a European, any of the world top 10 basically.
Okay, cool. All right. Are we moving on to the main event?
Nope, we got the
What else we got?
Heffron
Oh,
Cullen.
all right, yeah, go for it.
So Heffron Cullen, I haven't got any images of this one, unfortunately, but this was a shocker of a fight. Mark Heffron was heavily favoured to win this bout. He was fighting Jack Cullen. This was for the British super middleweight and the Commonwealth super middleweight title. The two fighters have boxed each other. They sparred several rounds together. They know each other implicitly. So, there was a knowledge of one another's game going into this fight. Cullen held a distinct height and reach advantage over Mark Heffron, but Mark Heffron is a very solid fighter, and it was, I think, heavily touted that he would be just too hard a fighter for Jack Cullen down the road and would probably end up with a stoppage. And little did they know that Jack Cullen meant business, and he came out on smoke. He looked like he had got himself into some of the best shape I've seen him in for a long time. He's still a very skinny and rangy fighter, but he looked in good shape, made the weight well. But he came out with intentions. He used his jab effectively, and when he did, he was clear that he wasn't going to allow Mark Heffron to get off. He was using his feet to circumvent around Heffron. And anytime Heffron getting close, he would unleash a barrage of punches and then move out. And it was an effective strategy, one which they clearly knew that was effective. They've used previously in sparring. But what the difference was he was setting down on punches. And it looked dangerous for Cullen all the way through until the stoppage, which was very much of a shock, because when he clocked Heffron, it took all the fight out of Heffron, and it was definitely a good win. What was your take on this one?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of the few that I got wrong on the. Well, actually, I say few. This is actually the only one I got wrong on the weekend. Um, there was others I got the methods wrong, but this one is the only person that I didn't actually predict. So I did think that Heffron would win, but I thought he would eke out a points decision, a split decision. Um, Purely because I do know that he is a bit of a front runner, and I know that Jack Cullen, having sparred him so much in the past, I felt like there would be a familiarity between the two of them. So even though Heffron might sort of get on top of the fight early, Cullen will be able to sort of rally from the sort of the second and third stanzas, while Heffron would maybe do just enough to kind of eke it out. But yeah, I mean, pretty much from the first round, Jack Cullen had the measure of him. Was hitting him, was sort of just measuring him with the jab. He was sticking that stiff jab in his face as well. It wasn't just like a pouring or a rangefinder. It was, there was some weight behind it. Had very good footwork. He was sort of moving around the target, was making Heffron have to fall in. He took a couple of good body shots that he wore well. But outside of that, he, for me, was, just sort of controlling more of the fight without necessarily dominating in sort of rounds 1 and 2. And then ultimately, they just went for the exchange. I mean, and Heffron, to be honest, he tried to hook with Cullen, which you could say you can do, but he was trying to hook with him from too far out. So we had to overextend and overreach for the hook. And as that happened, the longer arm of Jack Cullen just basically caught him first. Like you said, took his legs away. He tried to get up straight away, had to hold on to the rope, but his legs weren't there. So as soon as he tried to move, back down he went, and the referee waved it off. So third round KO for Jack Cullen. A great showing from him, and he's one of those guys that he may never necessarily win the big ones, but he wins big fights for him, if that makes sense. And
Mm.
he probably never be a world champ or anything, but he's a hard night's work for anyone that's not of that top levels, like a Diego Pacheco or the
Yeah.
big guys of the 168 division. So big up to Jack Cullen. More big paydays coming in his future, and maybe he might even get a little 2 or 3 fight deal off of this, even if it's just to be an opponent. So we'll see what happens.
Well, he's got 2 nice straps in his collection now, so he can, I think, command a little bit more respect now from the broadcasters in terms of what they do with him next. Because those 2 straps, I think, make him a headliner in his next fight for sure.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay,
Cool.
main event.
And that leads us to the finale, which is Eubank Jr. in a rematch against Liam Smith. We saw the first fight, the devastating knockout, the shock from that first fight. And in all honesty, I called it a long time ago. People said the fact that I was moving with Eubank in a cabana in Las Vegas, they were saying, "Oh, look, he's not living the life." I was like, "Nope, don't believe the hype. Just because he's out here, I know it looks wrong. Optically, it looks wrong, but I know I know Chris Eubank Jr. is a gym rat, and he put himself in a place where he could get good work, he could get into shape in good fashion. Even though he was at a pool party with me, he wasn't drinking, he wasn't doing anything to excess. He was just quietly going about, enjoying himself with a glass of water, and looking in good shape at the time, at the start of this of August. And I was comfortable when I had a chat with him to say, "Yeah, I believe you, Chris. I believe that he could come back." I was very shocked when he chose Bomac as his trainer. I wasn't sure how that would affect him, but I felt that he would be able to do something. And so it panned out to be that he was able to right the wrong from the original fight. And it was a completely opposite performance to the first fight in terms of, in the first fight, I don't think he prepared well. I think in this fight, he prepared well. I think in the first fight, Liam Smith had prepared well. And I think that was completely the opposite for Liam Smith. I don't see that he prepared well at all for this fight. At no point in time did you see anything look like Liam Smith of old. I thought he was very pedestrian with his footwork. I thought he just wasn't throwing his hands. He did nothing in the fight to make me think, here's a guy who has put in the hard work and knows what he needs to do to have any kind of semblance or resemblance of the first fight performance, where he took a bit of a beating in the first couple of rounds, but came back strong and was able to defeat Eubank. In this fight, Eubank dominated from literally the first round to the last and was able to use a very effective jab. The jab was one that we have seen before. Some people have said they've never seen that jab before. Chris Eubank has always had a good jab in my estimation. But what he was able to do was find it with great timing and regularity into the face of Smith. He used a double jab. Again, for my kids who might be watching, I always tell you guys, double up your jabs. If you fall short with the first, make sure the second hits. And Chris Eubank was doing that with extreme accuracy and landing it on a regular basis. But not only did he use his jab effectively, he followed it up with good combination work. He seemed to rock Liam Smith with pretty much most of the punches that he had, or at least move him backwards. And then he was able to take on his impetus of moving forward and then offload his combinations, take a step back, reset, start again. And that was the strategy for the whole fight until the very last round, where he basically stepped on the gas. He started to throw the vicious uppercuts, which were landing through the Smith guard. And, I'm thinking to myself, at no point in time does Smith think, you know what, I need to guard against this uppercut because it's getting dangerous to me. And this is where strategy didn't change. If I'm here and a guy's throwing an uppercut, then I need to do something to guard against the uppercut. Somehow, something needs to change, so that I guard against the uppercut, because that's a dangerous shot. If I get caught on the chin with a vicious uppercut, it can say good night very quickly. So I don't want that to happen. And if a guy's throwing uppercuts, I need to consider what defense can I employ to be able to negate that uppercut. And at no point in any round did Liam Smith change his strategy by way of what he was doing defensively to stop either the jab or that vicious uppercut. And so it was to be the comeuppance of him, because essentially the uppercut destroyed him in the last round, and it was a good stoppage. At that point in time, I was already saying that I think Liam's corner need to pull him out, because he was at that point unable to win the fight unless he was able to get a stoppage, and he didn't look anywhere close to getting a stoppage.
I hear that. North Bank with the jokes, as always. Big up to you. So Declan says, thank you, by the way, Base. Until I watched your video, I didn't hear the camp rumors about Smith, which helped me advise a few mates not to bet on Smith. So yeah, I did pick Chris Eubank Smith to win the fight. I didn't expect it to be Terence Crawford like that.
Who's Chris Eubank Smith?
Sorry, Chris Eubank to win the Smith fight. Yeah, Chris Eubank to win the Smith fight. Yeah, I picked him to win the fight. But as I was saying, I didn't expect it to be, Terence Crawford like beatdown, just uncompetitive from start to finish. And that's not, I'm not making that as a reference to Bomac or trying to, rub salt in the wounds to Danny, who happens to just be in the chat. But no, I predicted it would be he would either win via split decision or very late stoppage. But I did sort of predict like rounds 11 to 12 as opposed to 10. So, slightly wrong. But yeah, I just felt that everyone says rematches are normally made by a person that can make the most adjustments. in this particular type of fight, that person would have to be Chris Eubank Jr. purely because Liam Smith fights one way and always fights one way. He's very clever in how he does it, and obviously he makes subtle changes from fight to fight, but ultimately it's always the same way. Whereas Chris, was trying to fight as a almost like a pure boxer before, with a bit of a boxer puncher spite, when he's always just kind of been like a sort of more of a front foot, not so much pressure guy, but a front foot boxer puncher. Always stay within range, quick flurries, take a breath, and then sort of get back to work. But in this one, yeah, he employed the jab. He was very much the boxer puncher against the pressure fighter. And when I even say, rematches are won by the person that can make the most adjustments, you also got to remember he was winning the first fight up until he got caught in the fourth round. So there wasn't a huge amount of adjustments that needed to be made, except for just some focus. Putting a hard, that hard ramrod jab in Smith's face, as opposed to maybe just trying to use it as a way to open up the guard to then throw the uppercuts. And then, yeah, you have Smith falling in on the inside and getting caught with those uppercuts quite frequently. Now, the first few rounds, very sort of scrappy. They was all controlled by Chris, but they was very sort of scrappy. Chris would, sort of collapse the pocket to just fall into the inside to stop Smith to get any work. So Eubank was making sure that he that Smith couldn't do any have any success in those moments. So he would tie him up. On occasion he'd push him back, and on other occasions Smith would push him back. But he'd be rolling on the inside, forcing Liam Smith to have to try and throw those back of the head shots, which I don't think the referee did a good enough job of warning about throughout the fight. He mentioned it a couple of times, but there was quite a few that were landing. However, on a couple of those occasions, I can accept it, because Chris was almost turning his head. So as you're turning your head, they always say if you turn your head and the shot hits you in the back, it's not a foul, because you've obviously turned into it. So that was sort of some of Liam's saving grace, but he could just never able to get any momentum. And then, yeah, the same round where the controversy and the intrigue from the first fight occurred was exactly the same this one. The only difference is the other person was the one that ended up taking a knee. So, it was. After that, I mean, look, the fifth round he went a bit wild. He was trying to take Liam Smith out, but Smith, being that wily veteran, was riding, rolling, and slipping a lot of shots. Chris expended a lot of energy, and at that point, I was worried that maybe he might have sort of blown the gasket and would have to sort of recover for the next few rounds, and then that could be Liam's opportunity to get into the fight. But you could just see from, even from sort of round one, like Liam Smith just couldn't close that distance, even behind the high guard that he's used to having. So, yeah, it was just. That didn't allow Chris to basically do what he wanted to. He went for walks when he needed to go for walks. He was taking necessary breaks, but he was just busting Liam Smith up with the jab, 1-2, and then sort of every time Liam was trying to throw and he was falling in, or he was crouching down in the high guard, Chris would just split the guard with the uppercut. And some people said they felt like he could have taken Liam out earlier. He probably could have, but ultimately, you don't need to take risks at that point, and I'm pretty sure he would have been more happy to just bust up Liam Smith conclusively, rather than it say, I didn't really get going, it got stopped too early. If it got stopped in the fifth, that might have been the refs let it go on, he should have let it go on. Whereas no, you busted up conclusively for 10 rounds. You didn't have a punch that was now going to be able to knock him out. You can't get to the target. You're getting just basically beat up every single round. Your eyes split open. You're getting teed off on against the ropes now. You've got no equilibrium, it almost looked like at points. Yeah, it was a correct stoppage, and yeah, total dominating performance by Chris Eubank Jr. He wrote the wrongs of the past. He faced those demons and scared them off. So on to bigger and better things for him. I personally would like to see the world title shot against Erislandy Lara. Is the only legit champion that's available at the moment, because Gianni Beck, Alim Kanalai, and Gualtieri, they are both they're in the unification fight next for the IBF and the WBO titles. So yeah, and obviously the WBC is out of commission, and Carlos Adames only has the interim title, which is not really worth anything at this point when the main champion still has the full belt and isn't being stripped or made to fight for it. So yeah, the only legit champion Chris can go for is that WBA title, and considering he held a version of that at super middleweight previously, no, sorry, he held the interim or the regular or the interim version at 160 when he came back down, or when he was fighting Matt Korobov. So yeah, it would be good for him to sort of get the full version of that and yeah, keep it moving. But big ups to Chris Eubank Jr. Like I said, dominant performance. Obviously, the only issue we maybe have now is he may potentially have to look for another trainer again, or base himself in America, because either Bomac is going to be incarcerated for a short period of time, or he may end up getting extradited to the US and not being allowed to travel back, in which case Chris will have to do maybe camps out there and then have a second in the corner who he maybe won't listen to because he doesn't respect, which is supposedly the issue with him, that a lot of people say. So that would be interesting. But yeah, big ups to him. Haven't really got much more to say about it. You're muted.
Big up to my fellow coach Ricky English at Croy Gas in the chat. Also, big up to Lee Cuxton, another one of my coaches at the gym, also in the chat. Great to see you guys, fellas. Yeah, I mean, good performance from young Chris. The whole Bomac gun issue is just crazy to me. Someone has asked me to comment about the boots. I really can't say much about boots because boots is one of the most personal things a fighter has, and without a doubt, you must wear a whole lot of boxing boots if you get to 33 and know what you like in a boot. So it just seems really weird that people are saying, did he wear the wrong boot? Well, you can't really have worn the wrong boot, because I'm pretty sure if you're an Everlast guy, which is what he was wearing, he's wearing Everlast boots. You've probably worn Everlast boots most of your career, because people don't just tend to change boot manufacturer. You know, you stick with what you like. I'm an Adidas guy. I like Adidas boots. Yeah. I'm never going to change Adidas boots. They're going to be the boot of my choice all the time. But pretty much the same as gloves. You know which gloves you're going to choose. But yeah, it just seemed really weird. I can't make anything of it in terms of, was it the wrong boot? Should he have worn a higher boot? Look, what you like. Some people, look at Amanda Serrano. She likes to wear basketball boots in the ring. I'm not going to knock her.
Okay. Let's see. Declan, did you see the Groves interview where he mentioned it? I haven't seen it. I don't think Tony has either. But
I know
yeah, I
he
mean,
did mention about him wearing those what would be a low? If we consider like lows, mids, and highs, yeah, he was wearing a low. So it's almost like a trainer, but with a higher sole. The sole did look higher than most normal boxing boots. But, as I said, he must know what he likes.
yeah, but Danny says he must have been wearing Adidas or Lonsdale because Everlast only came out recently as a boot. So who knows? But okay, well, look, that's pretty much it for the evening. You man, well, point by you man are done for. A lot of basketball shoes do have great ankle support, but not all of them, especially the low cut ones, which I know Amanda does wear a couple of low cuts. But the low cut ones are are more comfortable. But yeah, the higher ones, high tops, they definitely do have good ankle support in them. So I give you that. But yes, okay. Tony, give everyone your socials. We've got a nice little spry quick show today. Is a great one.
Nice. So, guys, catch me at Pugilistboy on Instagram. Sorry, on Twitter and YouTube. But on Instagram is Pugilistic Boy, as you can see down there. Pugilistic as opposed to pugilist boy.
Lovely. And for me, it's see down there, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. That's the YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. If you're not subscribed and you don't want to, that's cool. But just watch a video, give me a view. It helps with the algorithms. On Instagram, it's BaseDaKID. Again, don't go on there looking for boxing content. I very rarely put boxing stuff on there unless I'm at an event. That's more pictures of holidays and stuff when I go out. Outside of that, catch me on Twitter. It's B_A_S_E, or you can just type in BaseDaKID, as you can see right there. And I do show up first on X. Maybe I should change that on there to X instead of Twitter. But yeah, ultimately that is pretty much it. So check the last. Okay, Lyndon Arthur wears basketball type trainers. He does. That's correct. Bless Deacon, thank you for that. And you man said, what games are you playing on PS5 base? Right, so that's a funny story, you man. What I will say is I bought the PS5. I ain't actually bought any of the games for it yet. So while it's there, I'm basically downloading the PS4 games I have that have PS5 upgrades that I haven't started playing already, and that's what I will be using to start off my PS5 journey. But yeah, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and big up to everyone in the chat, all the members. Make sure you come back next week. We should have a guest next week, and the week after we will definitely have one, but we'll talk more about that later on. But yeah, for now, thanks. Enjoy. Peace.